All right, so this is a screencast of the pre-lab for Lab 1 Energy Survey. Now, first thing you're going to do, this is a station lab, and you're going to have a variety of different stations that you're going to go to. The first one, you may not start on this one. You're all going to start at different ones, but let's say you start on the bouncing ball one. Your objective is to determine the forms of energy impacting a bouncing ball. So make sure that you read the instructions and read all of the instructions. There's lots of useful information in the instructions, and it has stuff like record your data in the table below. It wants you to record it in meters, but it mentions to you that there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. All right. Also, it tells you that there are 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram. And so both of those bits of information you may need when you're taking your data. All right. Because the balance will be in grams, and you will need to convert it into kilograms when you write it into this part of the data table. All right. So attention to details matters on labs. Now, as you follow those directions, you're going to do what it asks you to do. And one of the things you're going to do in this lab is to write down the rebound height of the ball and the rebound height of the ball on its second bounce as well. Now, if you would like, not all labs do we get to do this, but in this one, if you'd like to bring in your smartphone, if it has the ability to take video, we can video the balls bouncing up and down, and that will allow you to get better data. So on this lab, you do have permission to bring in your smartphone we'll put it on the tripod. I have a thing to hold your phone, and you can video the ball. Okay. Now, in each one of these parts, or I should say stations, you're going to need to, in the forms of energy section above, highlight all of the forms of energy you observed at this station, and then explain why you selected each. That's important. You can't just write them down. You also then need to say why you wrote them down. So let's go into this. This first one we'll talk about together. Obviously, this image of a bouncing ball might be helpful to tell you that the bouncing ball one is elastic energy, and it is. It's a form of potential energy, and the energy gets stored in the ball in the form of elastic energy when it hits the ground and then shoots back up. Also, gravitational. Gravity makes the ball fall, right? That's what forces it to fall at 9.8 meters per second squared. And that is one of the forms of energy that you would have. And then obviously the ball is moving around. Kinetic energy, and the form of kinetic energy is going to be mechanical in the actual movement of the ball. So there are at least 3. Now, did you hear the ball bounce? That might be something you need to put down. Was there a chemical reaction involved? Those type of things. What's going to be helpful for this portion is if you go to page 13 of your textbook that looks like this, right? Also, don't forget electrostatic. And it lists all of these different forms that are up there on your lab, but this gives a little more detail so that you can help you remember if they're involved in this station or not. So please don't forget to look at page 13. So then it's going to ask you a variety of questions. Don't worry about answering the questions while you're doing the stations, because what you need to do is you need to be doing the doing portion of the lab, or going to each station and experiencing what happens. You can do the writing or the answering either after you finish the lab or at home for homework. So there's several questions that you're going to answer about that. And then you're going to move on to the next station. The next station is a reaction station, and your job is to determine the forms of energy within a chemical reaction. All right. Once again, it lists the materials. It lists the instructions on what you need to do. We'll go over specific instructions in class, but make sure that you do this. Now, like, look at number 7. It says, describe the changes you see in the bottle. So make sure when you answer that, you put as much detail as you possibly can. What are you seeing? Is there a smell given off? Is there a sound given off? All of these things, all these observations need to be written down in your labs, because the more detail, the better. All right. And once again, in this one, you're going to use the forms of energy section above, and you're going to highlight all the forms of energy that you observed at this station. And once again, don't forget to explain why you did each. We're going to do a balloon. It's going to already be blown up for you, and you're going to rub different fabrics on there to see if it creates any type of energy. And what form will it be? Specifically, a little bit of a hint, we're going to be looking at static electricity, which falls into the category of electrostatic energy. So that station, you'll definitely have at least one. The magnets. Now, here is what I want you to do. I want you to go ahead and make your predictions right here on what you think is going to happen when you place a magnet next to paper. Write your prediction here. When you place a magnet next to a penny, when you place a magnet next to a quarter, and if you place a magnet next to a metal paper clip. And then write your predictions and give an explanation for why you made that prediction right here. And then come lab time, you will be able to fill in what you actually observed. Now, don't try this. We'll try it during the lab. I just want you to make your predictions. So you should have these 8 cells filled out right here when you come to class with your lab. Okay? All right. Now the voice, this one we'll have the computer set up with a decibel meter that will graph your voice and sound in the room. And so just make sure when you're doing that one, obviously don't yell into the microphone. Be reasonable when you're talking into it. All right. The next station is a wind-up toy. We'll have a variety of wind-up toys that you will wind up, and you'll see what happens when you release them. I think we're all familiar with those. Make sure you give a description of the toy. How is the winding action done exactly, and then describe the resulting motion. Once again, as in all of them, you're going to need to highlight the forms of energy and then explain why you selected each. And then that will be the end of the lab. So specific safety details we'll go over in class. But really for this lab, just make sure that you are familiar with the different forms of energy and that you have filled out the data table for the magnet. All right? Okay, that's it for this pre-lab. We'll see you in class to do the lab soon.